Alrighty, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining the July 27th meeting of the Garden Grove City Council. We'll call to order, and I'll immediately hand it over to Chair Kim Nguyen, to conduct the Housing Authority meeting first.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Beckles?
Here.
Commissioner Breitigam?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Bowie? Yeah. Commissioner Tindock?
Here.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
Chair Kim Nguyen?
Here.
And Commissioners O'Neill and Klumpenstein are absent.
Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
I have no pink cards.
Seeing none, I'll move on to consent items, where I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Motion by Breitigam, second by Bowie. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Beckles?
Here.
Commissioner Breitigam?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Commissioner Tindock?
Yes.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
And Chair Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Moving on to item 3A, which is a public hearing, approval of the revised Housing Authority Administrative Plan. Do we
Item
have a
3A
report?
is approval of the revised Housing Authority Administrative Plan.
Good evening, Chairwoman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is the revised Housing Authority Administrative Plan. The Department of Housing and Urban Development requires the Housing Authority to adopt an administrative plan. The purpose of the plan is to outline the authority's policies and procedures in the administration of the program. The plan has undergone numerous updates and revisions to accommodate regulatory changes in the program, to improve procedures, and to clarify policies. This revised administrative plan updates the Housing Authority mission statement and organizational chart, and also include language responding to HUD policies and clarifications on procedures such as income exclusion and inclusions, utility allowance for mobile homes, quality control inspections, checks and direct deposits, procedures for administering the mainstream and emergency housing voucher program. The public hearing has been properly noticed on July 2nd and the 9th. It is recommended that the Housing Commission conduct the public hearing and approve the revised administrative plan. That concludes my report. I'm available for questions.
I'll open up the public hearing. I'm assuming we have no one wishing to speak. I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, does anyone have any comments or questions?
No.
I'll move approval.
I second it.
Before, I actually do have a question. In regards to the removal from wait list, I noticed that in the plan it states that we mail. Do we do other forms of outreach to ensure folks are either no longer eligible, no longer wish to participate, or is it just via mail?
When we send out a mail that they don't respond, what we do is we inactivate them off the wait list. Inactivation means they are no longer active on the waiting list, but they have up to 3 years. During that time, if they contacted us saying perhaps they didn't receive the mail or with a reason, we can reactivate them.
Perfect. And then my second question was regarding the mobility agreement. Does this mean that we have residents from Garden Grove who are unable to fulfill their vouchers here and then seek out opportunities in either these cities that have housing authorities and or with the county?
Mobility agreement basically is an agreement that's between the three housing authorities in Orange County with us, Anaheim and Santa Ana. So basically it simply means that their tenant can move into our jurisdiction and we will be the one that inspecting the unit.
Okay.
But the administration of the case would be the initial housing authority.
And then
But
my
they can
final-
move anywhere pretty much, yes.
Thank you. My final question was, how often do we go through the wait list to make sure that it's current and up to date? And if possible, are we able to get updated numbers after you do so?
We don't purge the wait list as often as we used to, simply because the waiting list was very large, and every time we did it in the past, it was very expensive and time-consuming. One reason why we did it this time, when we purged 14,000 names, one reason was to look for people who qualify for mainstream vouchers, which is non-elderly disabled families. So we had to send out letters to all 14,000 to seek out those members.
Perfect. So now that the list is significantly shorter, can we try to maintain that list and update it more frequently so that we don't end up with a 15,000 long wait list?
Sure, we can do that, yes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. When we have a roll call vote.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. We have a question from Commissioner.
I have a different question, not related to the report itself, but maybe you can help. Throughout the last few months, I got quite a few phone calls from people who qualify for the Section 8 program assistance. The problem is they couldn't find any properties in Garden Grove that they could move into. It seems like less people are willing to work with the housing authority because of some constraints. Is there any way you can do to, facilitate that, and so that people can have more, there are more landlords who are really willing to, work with the Section 8 programs?
Yeah, it's with the market the way it is today. It is tough. It is difficult to find landlords. A voucher usually is a 2 months voucher to look for a unit. We often can extend that to 4 months. But if a tenant can show proof that they have made an effort in looking for units, we actually can extend that voucher beyond the 4 months. So they can have 6 months, perhaps even more, to look for a unit. We do outreach and reach out to owners to advertise our program. But just the market the way it is today, it is a tough market for a housing authority, yes.
So in 4 to 6 months, if they cannot find any house that they can move in that accept the voucher, then they lost their voucher?
Yes, usually the voucher goes up to 4 months. If they have shown efforts in looking for units that they're unable to, we can extend it to 6 months or even beyond, but there is a point where they will lose their vouchers, yes.
Will we be able to help them looking for some property, or how does that work? But if they cannot find anything, then they are tough,
Yeah, it's an open market. It's I think we have listings that we can give out listings with owners, but with the market it is the way it is today, the listings are not as many as we used to have. But we make referrals, but it is pretty much an open market for them to look for.
Okay.
Ms. Chair, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarity. I understand there's some good news in the fact that we no longer have any homeless veterans on the list. Is that true?
That's true. That's true.
So they're all been taken care of?
On our waiting list, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I have a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Since the waiting list is going down from 14,000 to about 2,000, besides maintaining to update the list, are we looking in sometime in the future to start open up? Sometime in the future, I'm not saying right now. But is that something we are planning for or looking or plan for it?
That is something we are considering. That is a possibility. At the rate, from 2,000, we have 2,000 people on the waiting list. Roughly 1,000 or so are Garden Grove residents. At the rate we're going right now with the same funding, I'm thinking perhaps 3 or 4 years. However, there have been talked about increase from Congress with increasing in funding and increasing in vouchers. If that happens, say next year, then certainly, we will go through the list much faster, and so the waiting list may open much sooner.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I'll request for the roll call vote.
Commissioner Beckles?
No. I mean, you asked whether there's any more questions?
No, whether or not are you asking for the vote? Chairwoman?
Yes, asking for the vote now.
Yes.
Commissioner Beckles voted yes. Commissioner Breitigam?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Commissioner Tindock?
Yes.
Vice Chair Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Chair Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Any matters from other commissioners? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the Housing Authority meeting and pass it back to City Council.
Alrighty, thank you. We'll reconvene City Council and convene the meeting. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll for City Council?
Councilmember Breitigam?
Here.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
Councilmember Bowie?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Mayor Jones?
Here.
Council members O'Neill and Klopfenstein are absent.
Thank you. May I ask Assistant City Manager Maria Stipe to do the invocation? And then can I ask Councilmember Breitigam to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance thereafter?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask everybody to please stand and prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather tonight to make decisions for the benefit of our Garden Grove community, may we use our best skills and judgment to evaluate the merits of each matter before us. May we always act in accordance with what is best for the city, for our city, and for our fellow citizens. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, that takes us on to oral communications. I do have a number of cards. We'll start out with Tom Raber.
Hi, my name is Tom Raber. Who's the puppet master in Garden Grove? We, the people of Garden Grove, do not work for our government, for the city hall, for the police, or for the fire department. Those work for us. Garden Grove total population is 171,644. Of that, Asians are 41.1%, Hispanics 36.4%, white 19.5%, mixed race 1.6%, black 0.9%, American Indian 0.3%, Pacific Islanders 0.3%. If you painted, you would have a clean canvas in the beginning with beautiful colors and different shades of brown, black, yellow, and red to use. When you're done with the painting, there could be 19.5% of the canvas that is still left white. Seems Garden Grove is making their painting on their own design, getting rid of the unused canvas, not as nature has it. Garden Grove has had a mandatory less white, colorless, or cancer culture training classes against the white, 19.5%. Is Garden Grove going to have a less black, less Hispanic, less Asian training class? In Facebook, there was an event that just happened. The title line is, "Diversity is our middle name." Garden Grove had an Asian and Pacific Islander event on the 24th of July. When is the white event for the 19.5%? Vaseline. Who's Garden Grove's doctor? Who has the authority for Garden Grove to tell the residents to get the Vaseline? In fact, there is no mention of the non-approved FDA on the Vaseline. In fact, just yesterday, the FDA came out and said the PCR tests are false. In fact, Garden Grove has a clever first liners. Vaseline clinic alert. Let's slow the spread together. It's upon us. Again, the Vaseline is not FDA approved. On Monday, July 19th, I called the Garden Grove Police. There was a trailer parked on Bailey Street in front of a commercial building. The dispatcher told me we don't enforce the law. I told him about 10.15.56. First of all, I'd like to be on record right now, and my minute's taken off. She's using her smartphone, and I have the right under Brown Act to know what she's talking about. Okay? I'm watching right now. You can't do that. Just give me 30 seconds more.
Wrap it up, please. Go for it.
All right. So I called up on the 19th at 7:59. I was told by dispatch that they're not enforcing 10.56.115. I said, what? He says, we'll send a car out there to mark the tires. I said, I'm not calling about that. I am calling about 10.56.115. Come to find out, the officers arrived around 10 o'clock last night, ran the license plate, drove to the guy's house, knocked on his door. The guy moved the trailer, but the next day, the guy moved it back and told me face to face, he has an agreement with the police department, he's not gonna get towed. Thank you. And who's the puppet master of Garden Grove?
John Wilmot.
Hi, my name is John Wellmus. I've been a resident of Garden Grove since 1979. Has anybody seen the trash that's around Garden Grove? Have you seen it? Can you get a little bit proactive and pick it up? How about the shopping carts? What's your policy? I've called the store, I've called the city hall. I get one supervisor that says, it's not my problem. And I get the other one, depending on whether the cart is on the street or it's in the apartment complex. This problem started about 4 months ago. Waste Management decided they didn't want to pick up the recyclables. They didn't pick it up for about 2 months. I called them up, I asked them what I could do to help them pick it up. A month later, they finally picked it up. I don't know if it's because I called the city, they talked to them, or what, I don't know. The problem's coming back. I don't want to evict somebody from an apartment complex, but I do care about my neighborhood, what it looks like. Who do I call? Who can take care of this? I got numbers here, I got names. I just would like the carts picked up. They give me a phone number, you call the number, and they want to know who the carts belong to. Who's paying these people to pick the carts up? This is a problem. It's a horrible problem. I've even brought the carts back to Costco. I even brought one back to Ralph's on my own. Matter of fact, they moved it from that apartment complex to the alley, okay? So somebody's telling them to move it. Okay, they move it from their apartment complex to my back alley. Told them to, don't put it there no more, please. So they ship it off to the school. And then I call up, and guess what? The very next day, being that it's at the school, they picked it up. Years ago, they had a bin where they put trash out, okay, where people would throw stuff in. Can you go proactive on that? Is it possible? I mean, we're in Garden Grove, okay? There's another name that people call it, okay? We shouldn't.
You got to wrap it up, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll see if something happens. Thank you very much.
Karen Rodriguez.
Good evening. My name is Karen Rodriguez. I am a member of the Rise Up Willowick Coalition. Rise Up Willowick is a community group that consists of Santana and Garden Grove residents, as well as Orange County residents at large. We have been advocating since 2019 to you all, the city of Garden Grove, that our public land is critical to our existence and well-being. We have spoken to countless residents since 2019, and their concerns about Willowick has not changed. They do not want to see market rate housing or private commercial development. The reason why we are standing here today is because residents and community members have courageously pushed against the gross attempt to illegally sell 102 acres of public land to private developers. In 2019, the Los Angeles Superior Court ruled what most residents from Santana, Santa Anita, Garden Grove, and Buena Clinton already felt was that it was not only illegal to do so, but Garden Grove was not exempt from the Surplus Land Act. And this backdoor deal would have caused irreparable harm to our community. As I have mentioned, our communities alongside Rise Up Willowick have been advocating and organizing since 2019. Recently, we have spoken once again to Buena Clinton residents and asked the same question we asked in 2019. Are you aware that the city of Garden Grove is planning to dispose of Willowick? The answer is always no. But if you ask them what they would want to see, they happily share that they would love to see parks, community programming, resources, play areas, community gardens, to name a few. The Trust for Public Lands proposal is aligned with what the community residents have voiced. And because of their diligent and intentional work to understand and envision alongside our communities and alongside us, 26 organizations, including Friends of Harbor, Beaches and Parks, the California Native Plant Society, OC Environmental Justice, Latino Health Access, to name a few, have signed a letter in support of the Trust for Public Land proposal. As those negotiations continue, please honor the Surplus Land Act and our community residents. And I would like to submit this letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Flor Barajas Tena.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen, and I'm a member of the Rise Up Willowick Coalition. The Rise Up Willowick Coalition supports only one proposal, and that is the one put forward by Trust for Public Lands, a nationwide nonprofit with an amazing track record developing parkland and preserving green open space throughout the country. TPL proposes to purchase their property for open space use and recreational use, given that those are the only uses that are allowed under the current zoning codes and are prioritized by the California Surplus Land Act for a property already zoned for open space, such as Willowick. TPL's proposal is also in alignment with the community, which we define as residents. In addition to our thousands of conversations with residents, TPL has held workshops, design workshops with us in December 2020 and February 2021 to inform its proposal that includes parks, gardens, trails, and preserving existing open space. Not only does TPL's proposal have super priority as stipulated by the SLA, but it is the only proposal among the three being considered by the city that uses every single acre of Willowick for community benefits that are the chief priorities of the Surplus Land Act. On another note, the California Surplus Land Act process is a public process, or at least it should be. But for some reason, the city has had an unequal and arguably an unjust treatment towards Trust for Public Lands throughout this 90-day good faith negotiation process. For example, the city has published every single one of its correspondences with TPL, which isn't an issue. However, the issue is that you have failed to publish other correspondences with the 2 other negotiating parties, even though we have evidence that there is at least 1 email to the city from Ryan A., Senior Vice President of City Ventures, around December 2020. What does it mean when the city is lying to the public? How can we even trust you to make the right decision for the well-being of residents? Your choice is clear. Choosing Trust for Public Lands proposal is not only most in alignment with the SLA, the Surplus Land Act, and is not only in alignment with the residents and the community, but it is the only one that will provide the most lasting benefits to everyone, especially the residents. At this point, we don't even need data to know that the city lacks open parkland space. That is something we already know. But if you are still doubtful, I will share that only 1% of the city's total land goes towards park use. The city's park score, according to Trust for Public Lands analysis of city park accessibility, actually dropped this year too. So why are you making this a difficult decision? Show the public that we can count on you by choosing Trust for Public Lands. Thank you.
Were you Karen Estrada? Okay. What about Flor Barajas Tena? Okay, gotcha. Go ahead.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Steve Jones. My name is Flor Barajas Tena, and I am a member of the Rise Up Willowick Coalition. As we speak, you as council members have the opportunity to create much needed park space by moving forward with the Trust for Public Land proposal, which would currently add to the meager 1% the city currently dedicates to open space, as my colleague just mentioned. Mayor Steve Jones, you have declared May 16th as a park day, but where is the action tied to these resolutions, or are these just words? Willowick really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and our work is tied to the belief that communities of color should also have access to beautiful spaces where we can relax and just be human. I can enumerate the countless ways in which parks are so incredibly beneficial, both for public health and mental health. The West currently is facing increasingly heat waves. We know that parks can help reduce the excessive heat felt in highly dense urban settings by at least of an average of 6 degrees. And this is important given the fact that heat waves kill more people than any other weather-related event. But all of these statistics seem futile to present if a government is seemingly out of touch and does not orient itself toward life. We know that the climate crisis is looming and will affect all of us in this room, but it will affect us disparately. It will affect those who live in frontline communities, elders, children, and poor folks much more intensely. And so the question is, do you care? In a study conducted by the University of Notre Dame of 270 cities with populations of 100,000, greater than 100,000, both Garden Grove and Santana ranked among the least prepared and highest at risk of the effects of climate change. Whether you can see that your residents' survival is inextricably linked to your decision to move forward with a TPL proposal will determine whether neighborhoods like Buena Clinton and Santa Anita can see and feel some relief. The advocates and community members have done all of the hard work to get us to this point. We have the vision and the commitment, and what we need is for you to do better.
Thank you. Cynthia Aguera.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Guerra, and I'm one of the members of the Rise Up Willowick Coalition. As you negotiate with the different properties during the good faith negotiations required by the Surplus Land Act, I want to make clear that Garden Grove residents do not need more market rate housing. I have to explicitly state this because 2 of the projects you are currently considering, that of McWhinney and the so-called Willowick Community Partners, which they are not, propose to develop these 102 acres of public land as primarily market rate housing. That's the majority of 102 acres of public land being used for market rate housing. And I say this because it seems that you're leaning towards developments of that sort. Garden Grove residents have a median income of $62,675 in the year 2018, and specifically in the Buena Clinton area, which is the one adjacent to Willowick, of $54,318. Just so you know, which I think you all know by just hearing that, but HCD considers that very low income. Given that such a large portion of your population is very low income, I cannot understand why you would ever consider monetizing this land in this way and making the majority of this land market rate housing that will be inaccessible to all your residents. I think just showing how to touch the city is really with its residents. Looking at the previous planning period for the housing element, the income level at which the city produced the most amount of housing was the above moderate income level. And that's also known as market rate housing. So it's not accessible to most of your residents. And so even though for the past 8 years you have been prioritizing market rate housing, even though it's not needed, you're still trying to do that with the Willowick property. And that's, I don't know how to say it any other way, but it's just wrong. Clearly there is no need for market rate housing, and yet the city is determined to monetize this land. This is evident in the $90 million appraisal of the land that the city conducted and has adamantly said is correct. And these $90 million for the appraisal of the land is based on using the land as a planned community that prioritizes market rate housing and commercial development. Again, uses that are in no way meeting the needs of your current residents. Your appraisal assumes also, in addition to not meeting the needs of your residents, that the city of Santana will rezone this property as residential and commercial development. This property is currently zoned as open space, and you fail to conduct your appraisal in a way that actually reflects the reality of this land. So, I think, one, right now, I would urge you, obviously, to prioritize the needs of your residents and to prioritize the Trust for Public Land project, because that's the only one that actually meets the needs of your residents. But I would also urge you to conduct a second appraisal from the city that actually takes in mind the reality of that land and actually evaluates the land as open space, which is what it is. And hopefully, maybe you'll find it to actually, do your job and not only prioritize the land, appraise it in that way because it's zoned as open space, but because you know that that's what your residents need. Consistently, residents have said that they do not need market rate housing. We've hosted multiple meetings, conducted multiple surveys, and you're aware of all of this because we have submitted multiple letters.
Thank you very much, Irene
and received no
Bautista.
response.
Thank you. Irene Bautista.
I will be translating for Irene since she's a Spanish speaker, and I don't know that there's any interpreter here made available.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Irene Bautista, soy residente de Garden Grove. Yo le quiero preguntar al concilio por qué nunca nos avisaron que quieren vender el terreno y hacerlo vivienda de alto costo.
Si quiere terminar.
Okay. Llevo años viviendo ahí y también soy voluntaria del centro de Buena Clinton. Si nos hubieran preguntado a los residentes qué es lo que necesitamos, hubiéramos dicho un parque, porque los niños y adultos merecen tener un parque. No tienen dónde jugar o dónde salir a caminar. Yo vengo a decir como residente de Garden Grove, yo quiero que nos hagan caso, que nos hagan un parque en ese terreno y quiero que el concilio escoja el proyecto de Trust for Public Land. Gracias.
So I'll translate Irene's comment. Good afternoon. I am Irene Bautista, and I am a resident of Garden Grove. I want to ask the council today why no one ever told us from the city that you want to sell the land and make it market rate housing. I have been living in Buena Clinton for years, and I'm actually a volunteer of the Buena Clinton Community Center, and no one notified us. If someone had asked us what we wanted as residents, we would have said what we need is a park for kids and adults to go out and play and to walk and relax. I come here today to say, as a resident of Garden Grove, that you should all listen to us and do a park on that land. I also want to ask the council today to choose the project, the Trust for Public Land project.
Thank you. Byron Lopez.
Hello, my name is Byron Lopez. I was born in Garden Grove. I then, right around the Great Recession, we got foreclosed on, or at least our landlord did, and we were kicked out, and we moved a block over to Santa Ana. I have lived right next to the Willowick Golf Course my entire life. I've always been within eyeshot of it, and to be honest, I've always kind of hated it and resented it, because it has been a golf course and no one I ever knew growing up ever played golf. So when I found out that y'all were planning to sell it off and as non-surplus land to developers that would create market rate housing, I was incredibly livid, because by that point, I had already learned from many friends, not just from Orange County, but throughout the country, that when that happens, when a city sells off that much land to market rate developers who will create housing that is not suitable for people who already live next door, whose starting rents will be much higher than the rents we pay, that our rents tend to go up as well. And that will kick out basically everybody I know. I know this because I've been talking to my neighbors since 2019 when I found out about this. I was part of the survey conducted by Rise of Willowick, and every time I would ask, how much do you pay for rent? The rent is already extraordinarily high. I myself pay $1,500 a month for the land that we rent, and every single year that rent keeps going up. And knowing the consequences of selling it to McWhinney or the community partners, that rent will go up drastically, almost overnight, the moment y'all make that announcement, because every single landlord will kind of see they'll have money dollars in their eyes and know that the land will be much more valuable, and that we as tenants will not really be as valuable anymore in terms of rent. So with that in mind, I have been fighting for this since 2019. I was part of the lawsuit that had to sue you because you did not deem the Willowick Park as surplus land. The judge told you, yes, it is, and you should do that. The state Senate and the state legislature nullified the law, and y'all had to, by force, just put it as a surplus land, and now you're going through the process finally after so long, after taking forever, and then y'all decided the law doesn't apply to you and that good faith is just a word. So I'm imploring you to pick McWhinney, to value the land properly, because if not, there are possibly thousands of families who will be left out on the street with nothing. And we will be angry, and we will know it will be your fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Drexler.
Hello. I'd just like to do a correction. Byron meant to say TPL's proposal, not McWhinney's. Approved? Yes? Okay, cool. Agreed. All right, I'd just like to talk a bit about why the proposal put forward by Trust for Public Lands is superior to the other two competing proposals. So one of the best things about TPL's plan is that all of the open space will be accessible to the public. That's not something the other proposals guarantee. Strongly seems that open space that the other proposals do provide are for just the residents there. But we need open space that anyone can access. The Surplus Land Act gives super priority to open space if surplus property is already zoned as open space. And TPL's proposal provides the most recreational, publicly accessible open space out of the 3 proposals. It's gorgeous. It's got a community garden. It's got trails. It puts the other proposals to shame. They look like ass. Both Willowick and, it also matches the desires of the thousands of residents we've spoken to. Whereas on the other hand, the Willowick Community Partners and McWhinney-Wakeland prioritize market rate housing over affordable housing. 3 times as much market rate housing than affordable housing. Residents in the area explicitly stated that was what they don't want to see. They don't want to see any more market rate housing, as you've heard just a few seconds ago. Additionally, access to open space is limited to the public. I said that already. The commercial and housing units come at a great expense of the loss of open recreational space. So yeah, let's see. The Willowick community proposal puts 78 acres toward housing and commercial and only 15 acres toward open space. Garden Grove should not even consider McWhinney since they're a private market rate developer. Their proposal designates most of Willowick for market rate housing and commercial development. They propose only the bare minimum legal requirement of 25% affordable housing, which actually ends up like excluding very low income and extremely low income. And they leave less than 25 acres of the plot for open space. They also provide the least amount of affordable housing out of the 3 proposals. So yeah, McWhinney, not great. There's an additional issue of transparency. And this was brought up earlier. Why has only the correspondence between TPL and the city been posted to the website? Where are the correspondence between Willowick Community Partners and McWhinney-Wakeland? I'd be very interested to see if they received as much pushback from the city during the good faith negotiations as TPL did. Good timing.
Thank you. Tonics.
Check. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Tonix, pronombres él y ellos, y yo soy residente y consejero universitario de la ciudad de Santana. La mayor parte de mi infancia la pasé con mis amigos y familiares en el parque al final del calle de los apartamentos donde crecí. Al salir del pico del cierre de COVID-19, muchos de nosotros hemos vuelto a aprender la importancia de tener espacios abiertos, comunitarios, accesibles como los parques. Es por eso que primero me gustaría agradecer a la coalición de Rise Up Willowick por estar presente a nuestros estudiantes de nuestro programa universitario sobre la importancia de tener espacios públicos y parques accesibles en nuestras comunidades. Como muchos otros, no me enteré de la venta del terreno público anteriormente utilizado por el campo de golf de Willowick hasta que el equipo de Rise Up Willowick me informó sobre el plan original de la ciudad de Garden Grove de vender el terreno para uso comercial. Ahorita hay varias entidades que han presentado propuestas a la ciudad para transformar el campo de golf de Willowick. Sin embargo, la mayoría de esas entidades están priorizando la construcción de viviendas a precio del mercado en lugar de usar el terreno para beneficiar a los residentes locales. Es por eso que estoy aquí hoy a favor de la propuesta de Trust for Public Land. Otra vez es el Trust for Public Land, de convertir el campo de golf de Willowick en un parque público, accesible junto con un jardín comunitario, espacio para viviendas accesibles y otros beneficios públicos para nuestros niños y la comunidad. Gracias.
Thank you. Elizabeth Lagarde.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Lagarde, and I'm a former resident of Garden Grove. I grew up living in the neighborhood on the intersection of Roxy and Westminster. Went to Doig Intermediate School, went to Clinton Elementary School, had friends in the Bunning Clinton area, and so I would find myself walking over to that area to play with them. We ended up playing in paved roads, and the reason for that is because we didn't have any access to parks. Where would we go? And hearing Irene's story, Irene's comment, brings the fact that to this day, the kids and the youth in the area do not have access to the public parks. And it wasn't years until later that I realized there was a really large open green space literally in our backyards. And that's Willowwick Golf Course. So I just wanted to share my support for the Trust for Public Lands proposal. Especially because, Willowwick is one of the remaining large open public spaces in central Orange County. And we all benefit physically and mentally from parks. Just by a raise of hands, how many of you went to a park when we were deep in the pandemic and we had to stay at home? During that pandemic, we all benefited from parks. And it only makes sense to continue that access to open parks. With parks and the vast open trees and the landscapes, we all know from science that they absorb all the airborne toxins and captures and filters all the rainfall to replenish our groundwaters. And it also reduces the heat island effect. Right now, we have that opportunity to provide a healthy and livable environment to the community and residents of Santa Ana and Garden Grove. And the Trust for Public Land proposal will bring the most benefit. Thank you.
Michelle Zuniga.
Hello, City Council and Mayor. My name is Michelle Zuniga, and I'm a concerned resident of Orange County, and I strongly urge you to vote yes towards the Trust for Public Lands proposal that emphasizes park space on what is known as the Willowwick site. Myself and many others from the surrounding neighborhoods consider Trust for Public Lands proposal as the best choice because of the abundance of green space that would be preserved and the deep affordable housing that would be implemented as called for by the Surplus Lands Act. I support the Trust for Public Land proposal because I have had the opportunity to hear from many residents who live around the perimeter of Willowwick and who would like to see a park there and to have some affordable housing provided. Many residents also long for a green space where they can just be and step away from the overcrowded living conditions they may be living in, as expressed by many. And for some, it would be an outlet to get fresh air and practice social distancing, that which we are required to do in this pandemic, but for many has been really difficult given their living conditions. I think about myself and the access I have had in Irvine to parks. I could go to parks, hiking trails, and sit by ponds because there are many, while many other cities do not have this opportunity because of the unequal allocation of green spaces in low-income communities and communities of color. And many times this unequal allocation has been carried out due to marginalizing the needs of the most vulnerable and prioritizing the desires of those in power. And I also support the Trust for Public Land proposal because of my profound concern for climate change, particularly as it relates to urbanization and increased traffic and emissions that have dire consequences, consequences related to health. And the Trust for Public Lands proposal calls for less development and more park space to ensure environmental and climate justice. And cities across the world need to now more than ever make decisions that will help mitigate the climate change concerns like extreme heat, and supporting the development of a regional park with several trees and trails could help the surrounding communities immensely. And with this, I request you vote yes on Trust for Public Lands proposal and to be a part of a development focused on ensuring environmental and climate justice for the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you. John Rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and city staff. The last time I spoke to you, I indicated that I'm aware that to run a city takes a lot of effort and you deal with a lot of problems. The problem I present, I think, is very minor, but it has a very simple solution. Can somebody take care of the flowers on Main Street? Now, as an addendum, I'd like to say that in the 3 years that I've been attending these meetings, I've noticed several members of City Council on the dais looking at their iPhones or their electronic devices during oral communications and sometimes even during the regular presentations. There's one member who I've never seen do that, and I want to shout out to him, and that's Councilman Bradingham. Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin Din.
Good evening. This is my first time here. I'm the owner of property A. I rent it out to a housing recipient. When they moved out on April 30th, I opened the trash under my name on May 1st. On May 6th, I received a bill for about $500. And I called this number, and the agent told me, oh, it was addressed to the wrong person, so disregard, it's sent in error. A month later, I received a delinquent solid waste disposal fees for a little bit less than $500. I called again. I said, hey, you said it's sent in error. Why am I getting this bill? So the letter told me to come here today to address my concerns. Anyway, I don't know why, I was told that since I'm the owner of the property, I have to pay this amount. If Housing Authority was doing their job correctly, they should have checked that the recipient didn't pay their utilities bills and terminate their vouchers or whatever. Or if Waste Management is taking proper identifications or Social Security to go after whoever is putting these bills under their name, I check and I ask for the names of the previous person on the bill, and that name was not anywhere on my tenants list or part of the housing recipients. So now I'm stuck with this bill and I have to pay it. If they're doing the job correctly, I wouldn't be end up with a bill that I'm not supposed to pay. This is exactly the reason why, housing vouchers recipient do not find enough housing to rent, because landlords like me will not want to rent out to recipients. If we were put on, this burden to pay extra fees from these recipients. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have. Is there anyone else wishing to speak that did not turn in a card? Yeah, please go ahead and, but turn in a card though, please. Yes, please go ahead. Sure.
Hi, my name's Susan Mendez, and it's kind of like what this lady just said. I got a statement from Republic Services saying that I owe $590. Mine's a little different than hers, though, that when I bought the house 22 years ago, moved in with my family. My dad passed away about 6 months ago, so I'm bouncing back and forth between my home and my mother's home, which is also in Garden Grove. And so I got this thing, and I'm like, what is this? Well, I know I've been paying my bill. How come I got this? So I called. For 2 weeks, I've been calling them and asking. So that it came out that somebody by a name, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's T-H-A-O-Z-O. I don't know if that's a man. I don't know if it's a woman. I don't know what nationality they are, but this is a single-family home. Since we bought the house, I've lived there. Although, like I said, I stay at my mom's a lot because, well, she's 90 years old and she can't be by herself because she's partially paralyzed. Anyway, so they said, well, your bill got turned off in 2019. I'm like, but I've been paying my bill. You guys are taking the money, so how could you have turned off my, like, how did you close my account and who's this person? They have no idea who this person is. And I said, okay, so where have my payments been going? And they said, we don't know. Okay, but I got this letter that you're gonna put a lien or something that goes to my property taxes. And I'm like, well, how is that fair? When in the first place, I don't know this person. And then they said, well, it's probably your back house. I said, there is no back house. There's no A or B. There's not two houses on the property. I don't know this person. How did they do this? And they had no answer. They said, we don't know. We don't know how that happened. Okay, so who has to pay this and where have my payments been going? We don't know. It's gonna take a while for us to figure it out. So I've been waiting for 2 weeks. I even asked, okay, and I gave them, they made a copy. I said, do I have to go to this hearing or is this just like a general thing that you're letting people in Garden Grove know that this is going on or, I don't know. So he said, I don't know. I can't tell you to go to the meeting or not go to the meeting. I don't know. Okay, you don't know how to fix this. You don't know where my payments went. You don't know who's gonna pay this, and you don't know if I should go to the meeting. I don't even know that you guys know that you could do anything or not do anything, but it seems so. I got this, she got this. Evidently, this is something that is going on commonly. So I don't know how you guys can fix that, how you could figure out how did this even happen? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, the last two speakers kind of triggered, in some of their comments, that they're getting something in writing to come here to adjudicate a bill. I think it would be appropriate to refer them to staff to get that resolved tonight, because that's obviously false. And we should probably give them direction.
Mr. Mayor?
I set the last card aside, and I would hope that she would fill out a card too so that we can have somebody get back to me.
Mr. Mayor, I believe it's in regards to the sanitary district public hearing item. So I think we're going to get there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So with that, we will close oral communications.
We did get two written communications from the public, and one of them is from Katie Glass. She is a resident of Garden Grove, had taken her child to the Village Green Park playground area and was almost accosted by a homeless man who she felt was on drugs and was aggressive towards her. And she wanted to let the council know about her issue and some of her ideas about how to help with that problem with public parks. And we also received an email from Josh McIntosh, who is in opposition to the Red Flex camera contract. And that's all we received today.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, we will close oral communications. That takes us on to written communications, and we do have one listed, item 2A.
We have a consideration of a written request for a one-day use of the Willowick Golf Course for the annual Golf Classic on September 29th, 2021, and Community Services Director John Montanches is here to give that report.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight, I'm here to transmit a letter from Tam Nguyen, President of the Garden Grove Community Foundation, and John Glant, Chair of the Board of the Garden Grove Chamber of Commerce, requesting approval of a one-day use of Willowick Golf Course for their annual fundraising golf tournament on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. For the last 15 years, the Garden Grove Community Foundation and the Garden Grove Chamber of Commerce have partnered to host a Foundation Chamber Golf Classic. This event is the largest, most significant fundraiser for both organizations and helps support foundation events, including the free summer concerts series, Winter in the Grove, Buena Clinton Family Resource Center, Holiday Toy Drive, the Gem Theater, and various community groups, as well as assisting the Chamber in promoting the Garden Grove business community and providing resources for the tourists who visit Garden Grove. Due to COVID-19, last year's tournament had to be canceled. Traditionally, the City Council has granted joint use of the golf course to the Garden Grove Community Foundation and the Chamber for their annual Golf Classic fundraiser. The nonprofit rate for an all-day tournament with 144 players is $4,320. Both the foundation and the chamber are requesting this fee be waived. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or a motion?
I'll move it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Reidigam?
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen? Mayor
Yes.
Jones? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Mayor Jones? Motion received, 5 yes votes.
All righty, thank you. We'll now recess City Council and go to other legislative bodies. So I will hand it over to Chair Fat Bowie to do the Sanitation Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. I now open the Sanitary District agency meetings for Tuesday, July 27th. Madam Clerk, please roll call.
Member Reidigam?
Here.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
President Bowie?
Here.
Let the record show that members Klopfenstein and Vice President O'Neill are absent.
All right. We already do oral communication in conjunction with the City Council meetings. So we move on to consent items.
Move to approve.
Second.
You go first.
Do we have a second? Do we have a report?
Yeah, it was seconded.
Okay.
Two
So please roll call the vote.
Member Reidigam?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Any matters from members of the commission agency? Hearing none, I now adjourn the meeting and back to the City Council. Mayor Jones.
Thank you. We will now convene the successor.
Excuse me, President Bowie, we have other items on the agenda. We have a public hearing tonight. Item 3A is an adoption of a resolution to authorize the imposition of liens on parcels with delinquent payments for refuse collection and disposal service charges. And this is an action item continued from the June 22nd, 2021 meeting. And our Finance Director, Ms. Song, is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and good evening, Mr. President and the member of the board. This resolution is to authorize the delinquent refuse collection and disposal service charges to be collected on the county's property tax roll. State law allows the district to impose liens on properties delinquent on trash service charges following proper noticing procedures. The delinquent bills has to be over 60 days overdue. Trash service is provided by Republic Services. Republic bills customers quarterly, and the last billing of fiscal year 2021 was mailed in February 2021. All unpaid charges on that billing became delinquent on May 1st, which were at least 60 days after the due date. The delinquent amount plus 10% penalty can be filed with the County Auditor Controller's Office, and upon recordation by the county, the delinquent amount will be collected along with the property taxes and subject to the same penalties and procedures for tax foreclosure if unpaid. The property owners were notified of the delinquent amounts prior to it becoming a lien on the property. Notice of public hearing was published in the Orange County News on June 2nd and again on June 9, 2021. Republic also notified all the property owners of the delinquent amounts in writing. In order to place the delinquent amount on the parcel's property tax bill, the county is required It's requiring the district board to conduct a public hearing and approve the report detailing the delinquencies. So this resolution is fulfilling that purpose, and also the detailed delinquency listing by the parcel ID is attached to the report. So we recommend the board conduct a public hearing, adopt the resolution, and authorize the collection on the tax roll of the delinquent amounts, and direct staff to file the necessary documentation with the county recorder's office. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So I do have a few questions, and quite frankly, it involves the two ladies that spoke earlier. What is the process in place right now if I want to dispute this bill? It sounds to me that they weren't afforded any place, like what we do now with the water bill disputes. They can go to the Admin Appeals Commission and have a hearing. Is there a process like that in place now, or is it just you owe the money and we're going to put it on a lien on your property?
Yeah, the trash collection service is offered by the Republic Services, which is a contractor contracting with the city. So the city does not do the billing, have any accounting records, or have any appeal process in the entire process. What we do have is a franchise agreement with Republic Services that regulates what they can do, what they cannot do. So everything that we have authorized them in terms of rate setting, in terms of proper accounting, in terms of compliance, lack of a better term, that is all in that agreement. But the operations of providing that trash service is not part of the city's operation.
So Republic sends me a bill, and it says
Director
you owe
Bradigan?
X amount of money.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk. Let me finish.
Sure.
So Republic sends a bill, and they say you owe this much money, and I say no, I don't own it. I don't owe you that. Yes, you do. And they send the bill to the city, and there's no way they can appeal this, no way they can get a hearing. I mean, that seems very unfair to me, to the residents.
I do not want to speak on behalf of Republic, but I do believe there's proper, billing questions, the phone numbers provided, because the city does do its due diligence to select the trash service provider.
Some of the process right now, Councilmember Wright again, where they would actually contact the city. Preferably, they'd go to city staff. So what our staff will do is collect those, we'll get the information from the city manager's office, and then we'll follow up on behalf of the residents as the managers of the contract with Republic. And we will hopefully get to the bottom of exactly what's going on.
I mean, in all fairness, that sounds great, but honestly, in all good consciousness, I can't vote for this. There's no procedure in place. What happens when it happens to my mom? What happens when it happens to your mom? And, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. We're going to put a resolution, put this tax on people's bills, and not give them any kind of way to air it out or to dispute or anything like that. That just doesn't seem fair to me. I get that we're going to maybe, but there should be a process in black and white where these people can go to an impartial body and say, like what we do now with the water bills with the Admin Appeals Commission, even if, maybe we throw this at them, but there should be some way that they can get resolution, or at least a fair hearing.
Yeah, so there is a process, and the process we're going through right now, which is why we have a public hearing, which is why the Republic was required to give notice to the residents that were going to be on this list, at least the parcels, sufficient notice for them to decide whether to come to this meeting and protest the charges. If there are protests to the charges, the board has the authority to adopt the resolution and exclude the two items that were questioned. All that does is that Republic now has to deal with them and go through, continue to negotiate with them and figure out whether in fact they own the bill or not.
But there's two people who came tonight, but there's a lot of people who work, pay bills, they don't have time to come to a city council meeting. There might be many, many more. And without a firm way to deal with this in place.
Yeah, so those individuals are still able to go to Republic and say, this was charged to my property, and then ask for a refund if in fact they did not owe it.
But we're voting on this tonight.
Our experience is that most of these property owners do owe it, and they want the charges to be placed on the tax rolls. That's why they don't pay their monthly bill or their bi-monthly bill, because they prefer that it go on the tax rolls, because they paid with one bill through their tax collection. And so this is what, again, notice is provided, and then if anyone identifies that maybe there's a mistake, they can come to this hearing, they can talk to Republic. So my recommendation is that for those 2 parcels, you adopt the resolution and exclude those 2 parcels. And then that only means that those 2 property owners can continue to negotiate or deal with the Republic on those particular issues.
But what do we do about the people who didn't show up tonight?
The people who didn't show up tonight decided that it can go on their tax bills, and they still have the opportunity to contest it after the fact. But the
I think there's a lot of confusion on that. You know, it seems to me that to get somebody to come to a city council meeting is pretty tough. Let's face it, the general public doesn't come here unless they got an issue. And we got our local people who come all the time, but for the most part, the average person, it takes a lot to get them out here. And I'm hearing from 2 separate people on the same night that they have a dispute and they have no venue to present their dispute. And now you're telling us we're going to put it on their tax bill. I don't have a problem with doing that, but I think it's appropriate that we have some kind of way for people to dispute these charges. I think it's fair for everyone in the community, not just the 2 that showed up tonight, but everyone. There should be some methodology to dispute. I'm not saying they don't owe the money. I'm not saying they owe the money, but there should be some impartial arbitrator, hearing board, commission, whatever, that they can go to and present their facts and get an honest, evaluation of the circumstances.
Yeah, so the charges are utility charges. It's no different than paying for the water or paying for the electricity or the gas. The difference is that for the solid waste, the charges can be placed on the tax rolls. But before we do that, we do have the process where they can contact Republic and contest it. If they don't get the right result, then they can come to this hearing and contest it, and that's what they did. And so, again, I'm advising you that you have the authority to exclude those 2 parcels from this resolution.
So you're saying that the public hearing at the city council meeting is their only way to get this addressed?
No.
The public hearing?
No. So Republic charges monthly. If you pay the bill, your name would never, or your property would never be listed on these rolls. If they have dispute, and ultimately, Republic still provides us their name, and not their name, but their property information to put in this resolution, they still have the opportunity to come and contest it at the time of this hearing, so that it doesn't get on the tax roll.
But when you come to a public
If it does
hearing
get on the
like
tax
this,
roll,
you don't have the option of a vote. You don't have an option of us listening to both sides and coming to an arbitration of fact. All they can do is complain, and we're not even allowed to respond to them. So to me, that's just unsat. And you have the only real arbitrator of this is the person who's sending them the bill. Of course, it's in their best interest to say pay it. So, I think we need to think of this before we approve this. We should really think this out and maybe come up with a better way of doing it. I'm not against this, don't get me wrong. I think this is probably a good idea for the vast majority of people, but there needs to be a way for these people to dispute charges without having to come to a city council meeting and not even get any feedback. That just doesn't seem fair.
As I indicated, there are procedures to challenge these charges, not including them in these charges. I can tell you that the list and the resolution is due to the county August 5th or 7th?
August 10th.
August 10th.
Yeah.
So you either take action today or none of these would be able to get on the tax rolls. And we know for a fact that many property owners prefer to get these charges on the tax rolls.
And if I may add, there's a total over 1,500 parcels listed on the attachment to the resolution, with a total amount over $460,000.
So would it be appropriate to approve this with a caveat that we come up with a better arbitration venue for this? Maybe it's the Admin Appeals Commission, but I get that it needs to be done soon because the deadline's coming up, but just leaving it as is seems really inappropriate too. There needs to be a better way. This is low-hanging fruit. We need to fix this.
You certainly can make that part of your motion when you adopt this. And again, I'm also recommending that you exclude these two parcels so that they have the opportunity to continue to discuss it with Republic.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do agree with Council Members George Brigham in looking to the process, because I know the public, it's very hard to make it to the public hearing. And I know for the fact that when you contact Republic Service, it's very subjective who you're talking to. And I can see they're going to transfer you around over and over and repeat the same question, and at the end of the conversation, after half an hour, it's going nowhere. So I do think that we have to look at, or at least open communication with Republic Service to see there's a standardized of helping a constituent in this situation. Nobody want to be delinquent of anything or own anything, but maybe in circumstances that we need to have standardized where to help constituents have a better process of resolving it in a better way. I myself sometimes very hard to show up at the public hearing before as well. And that's reality. So I think we should have a talk with Republic Service to have some kind of standardized, easier process for people to resolve the issue of delinquency. And of course, I would take that, Mr. Omar, I think we should go through that, but at the same time, we need to have open channel with Republic and expect them to work on this for the constituent.
Any other members?
I have a couple clarifying questions.
Sure.
For those who may have not read the report, I just want to go through and make sure I got it straight. So Republic Services bills customers quarterly for refuse collection and disposal services. If a billing is not paid, a reminder is mailed to the individual who is responsible for the service. In addition, if a tenant does not pay for the service, the landlord is notified of non-payment 30 days prior to the public hearing. If a bill for service remains unpaid for a period of 60 days, at the end of the fiscal year, an assessment process will be implemented and a lien will be on post on the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, second. Prior to the delinquent amount becoming a lien against a property, the individual property owner is notified of the delinquent amount and the potential lien. A notice announcing this hearing date is published in local newspaper. Is that published in multi-language local newspapers? How do we get that out to Spanish and Vietnamese speakers and Korean speakers?
Madam Clerk, would you be able to answer that question? I believe that
it is not published in multiple languages.
Okay, so that's something that we can improve on and impose and placing on.
Definitely.
We can do that.
The different languages. Okay. The report of delinquent accounts is on file and available for review in the Sanitary District Board meeting. I skipped a line, sorry. The report of delinquent accounts is on file and available for review in the Office of the City Clerk. An updated report will be available at the June 22nd, 2021 Sanitary District Board meeting. I'm assuming that was when we pushed it back.
That is correct. That is the total reason because of the noticing. We want to give the people ample time, so we push it back for a whole month.
That's what I thought. An updated report, in order for the delinquent charges to be placed on the county's property tax roll, the board is required to hold a public meeting a public hearing to approve the charges to be collected by parcel. I understand the frustration of the two residents that came to speak. I imagine there's others who are frustrated, have no idea what's going on, ignored the mailing, and it's going to be on their tax roll. To the city attorney's point earlier, some residents prefer it that way, so there's multiple scenarios happening here. One of my questions is, prior to this, in the future, prior to this coming to a public hearing for the sanitary district, are we able to connect with Republic Services and potentially ask them to give us a list of individuals who have called to contest the charges on their bills? And if so, work with them to kind of crosswalk and figure out which ones have been resolved, which ones are outstanding, and if there's more that the Garden Grove City staff can do to alleviate that. I heard the Public Works Director say that we've got their contact information. They're going to be representing them and talking to Republic Services to try to fix the error. Is that correct?
We can definitely do that in the future.
Thank you. And I think given that, we have a process. It may not be the best process, so there's little things that we can do to improve it, but I don't want to diminish the work of our staff. There is a process. It is publicized, maybe not as well as it should, but obviously I just gave feedback to make sure that that's done in the future. With that, I'll leave my comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Any questions, Steve?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just, yeah, and everything Councilwoman Nguyen said is true, but if you, and when you look at all that, you know, the copies being at the city clerk's office, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't go to the city clerk's office to look for copies of things on a routine basis. And, you know, all those procedures are in place, and yet here we have two women that fell through the cracks, even with all that. And I'm sure that's many more. I'm almost positive. So I really do think, you know, at least some kind of board or arbitrator or somebody who can hear both sides and make an impartial decision if, you know, if Republic's right or if the, you know, if the resident is right. You know, just by establishing this entity, whatever it may be, or this individual, doesn't mean that they're right or wrong, or anyone's right or wrong. It just gives the community another level that they can go and air their grievance without it being the person who's actually sending them the bill for the most part. So I'm going to make a motion.
Please, we are not finishing yet. A question will start.
Oh, go ahead.
You have any question? I do have some concern. Maybe staff can clarify it for me. It seems to me that we are passing the buck around here. Obviously, everyone wants to collect the money that's owing to them. But in the case that of the two ladies that we heard earlier tonight, it's troubling me that they have to come to the public to contest the charge that being placed upon them. I don't think anyone would have to go through that kind of trouble to contest a charge publicly in front of the public. I think that's really, really wrong. Secondly, it's very clear to me that in the case of the people who open the account and request the services and do not pay it, they have to pay, right? No matter where they are trying to, we can go after them and demand that they have to pay. But for those who didn't open or request a service or who didn't even receive the services, why do they have to pay? Why does the Republic Services, you know, going to the owner of the properties to demand the payment since they wasn't living there? They did not request the services. They did not benefit from that services. So why do Republic Services go after them to pay when they cannot collect it from the tenants, right? So if the owners rented their property in the case of that first lady, that first speaker there, she didn't live at that property. She didn't receive any benefit from that, from Republican Services. Now, it's really sad that the tenant of that property didn't pay and then move away, why does he have to pay? Why wouldn't Republic go after the tenants? So I think this is not fair. That's the thing that's troubling me. I would support this item if we could make some minor adjustment to the way we enforce it. That we should not go after and put the lien on the property owner. We should go after those who open the account. If the account holder is under the property owner names, then we can put the lien on their property or do whatever to demand the payment. But if they are not the people who open the account or benefit from it, then we should not go after them. You think that is feasible?
Ultimately, the services are to the property, and the property owner does benefit when the tenants are being serviced for, the services that are being provided. So either the property owner, charges the tenants and the rent includes the utilities, or the property owner ultimately will be responsible for their own property. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to, to provide the service and enforce it.
And if I may add, unlike utility like water, they cannot do shutdown. They still have to deliver the service for the health and safety of the general public. So we can't have the trash uncollected on any streets. So that is probably why that we have this lien provision. Not we, but the state law allows for that.
Okay, if I'm the owner, let's just say I own a property and I rent it out to person ABC. And that person ABC open an account with the City Hall for waters, open with Edison, and then they didn't pay. Why do I have to pay for that? If you demand that the owner have to pay for it, can I just say, City, please, they did not pay, I do not authorize this. You kick them out if you have to, or I will have to kick them out, evict them, because can you stop the services? Because I'm not going to be liable for their not paying. I did not benefit from these services at all.
For water services, yes, the city can, based on, applying with state law, we can shut off the water services. So the water service account is always under whoever the resident, regardless of property owner or the tenant. And then if the account goes delinquent, it cannot be placed on the property tax lien. We cannot go after that, but we can go through the collection agency. The item here is on the refuse collection service, which is different, even though it's utility, but it's because of the public safety and health issues that the trash has to be picked up. And that is why I think, Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, that the state has this provision of allowing the trash service provider to place a lien on the property owner's property tax bill to enforce.
Yeah, we have regulations that require the property owner to subscribe to trash service in order to prevent the accumulation of trash and vermins and other health and safety issues. And because we have that requirement, then we are required to enforce it this way. We could revise the regulations and say if a tenant or someone doesn't pay for the service, then service will stop. But if services stop, you can see how the trash will accumulate. And that includes food that putrefies, that includes, it could raise a lot of health and safety issues. That's why we have this process, because we really don't want to stop trash service at any property.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think also most property owners, when they're renting out a property, they factor that into their rent. you know, we're going to add another $10, whatever, a month for the rent to cover that. I think most do. So that's probably another thing that goes to what you're saying. But with that being said, are you ready for a motion? You got more?
It's still troubling me that I do agree with the question that Councilman Bradingham and Councilman Dreher said earlier, that we still do not have a process for the resident to come and appeal if they think the charge is wrong. I think it is improper to expect that they have to come and dispute their charge publicly, in front of the public. I think we need to have a different process to allow that.
I was going to include that in my motion to adopt that process, or to explore adopting a process.
Right, and until the dispute is being resolved, we shouldn't put a lien on their property.
For these two, we're going to exempt them.
Or for anyone. If there is a dispute, we shouldn't put a lien on their property. We should attempt to resolve that dispute
Until it's gone through
first.
the process, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you make your motion, can you include having staff work with Republic Services to go through a list of complaints filed with them? And the language newspapers, please?
Sure, that'll be good. So there is
Thank
3 items now. Can you
That's fine.
recap that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make
There's
the
a motion?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
But before you make your motion and your second,
I didn't take
we
more
need to
notes.
close the public hearing.
Oh.
And I just need to read a short statement. So President Bowie, if you'd like to close the public hearing.
Yes, I would like to close the public hearing now.
As of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office we actually have not received any protests for this action, but today at this meeting, we did receive 2 protests. With that, there is not a majority protest for this action.
Okay. I'll move approval of the item with the 2 exceptions out in the audience that are protesting. For staff to work with Republic Services and remove any other protests that may be pending on these particular on this particular item, and that staff look into the creation of a public hearing or some kind of impartial dispute process for this type of thing.
And language.
And one more thing.
Oh, and include multiple languages in the mailings.
Would that include the letters that are sent by Republic?
Yes.
Yes.
And
No,
lastly,
I'll second it.
And lastly, staff will work with Republic to get the list of people who are delinquent. So 4 items. So
And
there's
I'll
Yeah, we
motion.
said,
Second.
we covered that.
Okay.
Did you get all that, Omar? I'm taking notes over here, too.
Can I get a clarification question from
Yes.
legal counsel?
Yes, please.
So removing these 2 or whatever does not prohibit them from being collected upon if in fact the charges are warranted?
That's correct.
It's like we're not making a decision to arbitrarily exempt these ones without knowing the facts of the case. Like I haven't
Agreed.
reviewed her lease agreement. I don't know who's on the trash bill, her or the tenant. I don't know what the dates were that the service stopped from the tenant and started with her. Any of that. Like I don't have the facts of the case, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying I know that I don't have enough facts to preside over either of the 2 cases in there, so I don't want to exempt them.
Yeah, by exempting them,
irrationally.
you are not waiving the charges. You're simply saying you're not collecting the amount due on the tax roll.
Okay.
But Republic can continue to collect. They'll just have to do it, through their own dispute resolution process, which could include, taking them to court.
Okay. There's a motion, a second. Madam Clerk, please roll call.
President Bowie,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
And Member Brightigam?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay. Moving on to item for consideration, we have item 4A.
Item 4A is award a contract to AKM Consulting Engineers for preparation of the 2021 Sewer System Rehabilitation Plan, Phase 2. And Public Works Director, Mr. Bill Murray, is here to give the report.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight, the board is being asked to award contract to provide engineering services, which include CCT inspections, and develop a rehabilitation plan for about 500,000 linear feet of sewer line, mostly located on the eastern part of the city, to AKM Consulting Engineers. This project is referred to as Phase 2 of the district's rehabilitation plan. The original plan, or the last plan that was done in 2005. Authoritative, well, basically the county has recommended that we perform this work every 10 years. And so with our last work being done in 2005, we were definitely due for this assessment. Staff sent out 3 requests for proposals and received 3 responses. Staff reviewed and rated the proposals and determined that AKM Consulting Engineers were the most qualified proposer and would provide the most qualified service to the city. The negotiated professional service agreement is just over $1 million. Should the board decide tonight to award the contract, the work can begin in August and should be complete by the end of the year. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Did you see members?
Move approval.
Second?
Call for the vote, please.
Member Brightigam?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
And President Bowie?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
All right. We come now to matters.
Just one matter for me, Mr. Bowie. Can we get a kind of an update on 3A within the next 6 months? Is that possible? Get a, kind of know what's going on with that and how we're moving to find a arbitrator or however, what we're going to do.
Councilmember Brightigam, Mr. Mayor and Council, we'll be happy to bring back a report in 6 months.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, I now adjourn the meetings.
Thank you. We'll convene the successor agency. Madam Clerk, would you call roll?
Member Brightigam?
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie?
Yeah.
And Chair Jones?
Here. We already did oral communications, so it moves on to consent items. Just receive and file the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Brightigam?
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowie?
Yes.
And Chair Jones?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Any matters from successor agency members?
Nope.
All right. Seeing none, we will adjourn. And before we reconvene council, let's take a 5-minute break. Just kidding. We're a little deeper into the agenda than that. Doesn't feel like it, but. Okay, we'll reconvene and go to consent items. It's recommended that items 3A through 3H be acted on simultaneously, unless anyone would like to pull any items. Do I have any requests to pull?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie? Councilmember Deidre Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilmember Brightingham?
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. That takes us on to items for consideration. We do have 2 listed, so item 4A.
Item 4A is approval of the Fourth Amendment to the agreement with Redflex Traffic Systems, Inc. for traffic photo enforcement, and Lieutenant Mike Viscamia is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The objectives of this item is to request City Council authorization to extend the current photo enforcement agreement with Redflex Traffic Systems, Inc. for 5 years. The city's photo enforcement program, or red light camera system, was initiated in July of 1999. The program includes 8 intersections with 14 approaches. The program has shown to reduce severe collisions and save lives. The most recent agreement with Redflex Traffic Systems, Inc. was executed on July 25th, 2017. That contract was for a 4-year term. It was extended through August 13th, 2021 by execution of the Third Amendment to that agreement. In order to keep this beneficial program in place, staff is proposing a 5-year extension to the current agreement. The basic terms of the original agreement are unchanged. Also, per Section 3 of the proposed Fourth Amendment, the fixed fee structure is being amended to include the no-fee Tier 2 designated intersection approaches into the Tier 1 designated intersection approaches. The fixed fee is also being adjusted from $2,800 per approach to $2,200 per approach to compensate for the elimination of the no-fee approaches. Overall, the monthly fixed fee would remain unchanged for all combined approaches. There is no impact to the general fund. All program operational costs are covered with program revenues. It is recommended that the City Council approve the Fourth Amendment with Redflex Traffic Systems, Inc., extending the existing agreement an additional 5 years, and authorize the city manager to execute the professional service agreement, Fourth Amendment, with Redflex Traffic Systems, Inc. This concludes the staff report, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions?
Mr. Mayor?
I got Fat first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. This 5-year extension really scared me. That's a long time for an extension. How long have Redflex been with the city?
Redflex has been with the city since July of 1999.
1999. That's a long time ago. So if we, that's almost 22 years. And we are giving another 5 years. I mean, we are giving sole source to another company, a business, for a total of almost 26 years. That's really long for a private business to be having a contract with a public agency. That's my question for now. Mayor Jones.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. First question, can you clarify or explain to me what the fixed fee structure is being amended to include the no-fee Tier 2 designated intersection approaches into the Tier 1 designated intersection approaches? Because I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I can clarify that. So in the last amendment or previous amendments, as I stated, there's 14 approaches. 3 of those approaches were in Tier 2, and there was no cost to that. We weren't being charged for those approaches. 11 of them were in Tier 1, and we were paying $2,800 per approach per month. So we were bringing all those into tier 1, and the rate is being reduced, therefore the monthly charges are exactly the same.
And are we paying $369,000 annually, or is that for the span of the 5 years?
I believe monthly would be $30,800, so I believe that's an annual. Yes, annual.
Okay. So full disclosure, I hate red light cameras. I've been a victim of them out in LA when I was commuting to Monterey Park for work. I was driving behind a big rig, and I assumed the big rig would not be taking a yellow to get through to the red. I'm thinking, big rig, really slow, it's gonna go on a green. So I follow behind it, and I'm halfway through the intersection, and the light is red, and then blam, I'm blinded by the lights. So I'm not a fan, clearly. It takes a lot of time to figure out what court I need to go to argue the ticket, or whatever it's called, before I even get the warning that, that I've been ticketed. And then also the cost for the classes is expensive. And so I decided I already spent 2 hours of my time commuting back and forth between LA at the time, and wasn't gonna take the day off to go handle this. So I took the hit, but not many people, especially not my residents, are financially able to take that kind of a hit to their insurance monthly or their annual rate, to pay the fee for the class, or to take the time off of work to go to these hearings to try and argue the ticket. So I'm not a fan, but I understand that there are some benefits. So I wanted to ask is, do we have the data over the last 22 years that shows the collisions or lack thereof, thanks to the red light cameras, the reduction in collisions, I should say, so that way we can see the trends to see if having these red light cameras are actually effective. I know that we do have a lot of collisions. There was one, I think, a couple days ago at Haster and Lamson where a motorcyclist was killed on impact, I believe. And we were constantly getting the emails of it happening around the city, and to the chief's point, where there are no red cameras or red light cameras. So I don't disagree, but I'd like to have that information. So as someone who does not like these cameras and think it's more of a burden and a hassle for folks who are, simple things, I know there's reckless drivers, but majority of folks are, the triggering of that light is very inconsistent at best, in my opinion. And so I wanted to know information or the data, and also if we have access to customer service experiences with our vendor in regards to handling these cases. I'm very well aware of the fact that more often than not, when people try to argue these cases, they lose, and they'd have to pay the ticket and it's a ding on their record, et cetera. So just wanting to know if when they're calling or trying to go through this process, if we have any data regarding customer service as well, on top of the trends over the last 22, however many years we've had this in place.
Daivu can answer questions in regards to collisions, and then we can go on to the second part of that question.
Yeah, the city has actually done an overall study of the collisions, the benefits of the program. The last study that was done showed that broadside collisions, which are the more serious collisions, were reduced a little bit over 40%. Although there was a small uptick in rear-end collisions, which is expected because people are seeing the signs, seeing the cameras, so sometimes they brake suddenly. And so we saw an uptick of about 10% in rear-end collisions over when we previously. The initial red light camera system was installed at one intersection in 1999. It was at Brookers and Westminster. I believe the rest were installed in 2005 or 6. And so the study was done looking at accidents prior to those dates and accidents after those dates.
While I have you there, for instance, one of the or two of the lights are in my district, Harbor and Trask. And what I meant by what triggers a camera or what triggers you getting a ticket is very inconsistent, because I've definitely been caught in that intersection and never received anything. So thank God for that, right? But it's because, the lights back up. So before that light, there's a smaller light. If you're driving up Harbor, there's a light right before Harbor and Trask. So, if folks decided they were going to wing it and try to go, you get stuck in that intersection. So I would also be curious on the algorithm of when you would get ticketed, because if you're stuck because you decided to go on the yellow and now there's 3 cars in the intersection waiting because the light before it or after it didn't go green, and now you have a backup, similar to what we have in Euclid all the time. So again, like I said, it's inconsistent at best, in my opinion. So curious as to what triggers it.
Well, there are inductive detector loops cut into the pavement. So it detects a vehicle and it also detects speed. So the vehicle has to be going over that inductive loop at a certain speed for the cameras to activate. And they don't activate until the light actually turns red.
Okay.
So your vehicle has to be behind the stop bar while the light is red. And then it also takes another photo of the vehicle in the intersection while the light is red. And one other thing that we have that kind of hinders the number of citations is we actually increased our yellow timing by half a second beyond what is recommended by the MUTCD.
Thank you. That intersection for me is really problematic because if you're going from Trask towards Harbor, there's 2 left turning lanes and people will be making some really risky left turns. And then folks who are going in the 1 lane dedicated going straight, there's confusion as to which lanes. There's 1 right turn lane, there's 1 straight lane going towards New Hope, and then the 2 others that are dedicated for left turns. Folks in that secondary, most outer left turning lane tend to go straight, which also causes some mayhem on that street. So anyway, I appreciate the detailed information. Again, not against it. I understand that we do have proof. I've heard from the chief that this is effective and it is helping reduce collisions on these intersections, but I would like to see the data. I'm curious about that.
Okay.
And just to expand on that, specifically at that intersection, when you're saying going up Harbor, like if you're going towards Garden Grove Boulevard or towards New Hope, those aren't 2 of the approaches. At Harbor and Trask, it's only southbound Harbor and eastbound Trask that have those cameras. So in those other 2 directions, they're not. The cameras aren't there. In regards to the second question, in regards to customer service with the vendor, once the violation comes, the photos and video come to us, it's solely between the Garden Grove Police Department and the driver. So there's no customer service vendor, there's no contact with that. One of our officers will review the video, review the photos, determine if violations has occurred, and then forward those for prosecution to the court. And then it's any normal appeal process or to fight any other traffic citation as if I were to issue one, where they have the opportunity to go to court and be seen in front of a judge.
Yeah. I too, like Councilman Nguyen, am a victim of that darn photo red light. Got me back in 2014, and I was guilty as guilty gets. And I got this beautiful, high-resolution photograph and video of me committing that right turn violation. So I've got proof. Yeah, it's no fun. Cost me $500, I think, for the whole. Had to do the online, thing. I was really, really upset, not about the citation because I totally earned that ticket. But I was upset that the ticket came from Arizona. It was mailed to me from Arizona, from the company. And again, I understand that no longer happens. But to me, that was a violation of confidentiality because California has laws and there's certain professions that would have confidentiality on their plate. And that information should never go to a private company. It's for law enforcement use only. And I was a little disappointed that somehow this company in Arizona got my personal information to mail me a citation. With that being said, I don't like traffic lights. Never have, never will. The data, and I'm not casting aspersions, but the traffic data I've reviewed, and I've reviewed a lot specifically on lights, is very contrary. Some say it does reduce, some say it doesn't. I think it does help a little bit, honestly, but the degree, I'm not so convinced. When this stuff came out, it was new and novel, and darn near every city in the state had it going. Right now, as time goes on, most people are thinking, rethinking this whole thing, and most cities have, and we're down to only 2 cities left in the entire county that have this. So 5 years on a sole source contract that's already gone on for 22 years or 27 years total. To me, that seems, kind of unfair to other businesses that might have the same type of system to put it out for bid. $369,000 a year over 5 years, it's just under $2 million. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So honestly, for 5 years, I'm not in favor of a 5-year extension on this. Maybe 2 years I could go along with, but 5 years is, and honestly, I think we should have that debate. I think it's time. Do we really want this or not in this city? I'm not necessarily against it. I do say they probably do provide some benefit, but is it worth $2 million a year? I don't know.
$2 million
That debate probably needs to be had before we start adding 5-year extensions to contracts. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Mr. Mayor?
Too hot.
Well, I myself doesn't like the camera either, but it's on different perspective. I never have any ticket on the red light, but every time I cross any intersection with the camera light, I always have a feeling that I've been watched. So that's the feeling. However, I do believe in safety. I do believe in people like myself have some perspective. Every time we drive across the intersection, we got to slow down just to make sure. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen also mentioned about inconsistency. And this is something that I want to bring up, that my question is, how often are we calibrating the camera? How often are we do the preventative maintenance to make sure the consistency, to make sure it works properly when they take a picture accordingly? Do we have that record?
Good evening, council members. Red Flex sends out maintenance to get each intersection done monthly. And then when any violator goes to court, that report is actually included in each of the court packs for court. So they have all that record with them. In the past, they used to have to request the discovery for that, but now we just include it in the package. But it is done monthly, the month prior and the month of the violation. They're done monthly. And then I go out and check the intersections as well. But mine isn't as technically as theirs. Mine is to time the yellow light phase and things of that nature. But Red Flex sends a tech out every month to check the intersections.
Okay. Thank you very much, officer. So yes, the 40%, according to data Mr. Dye, I think, or what the office provide is the decrease of 40% of accident, right? And 10% uptick of the rear end because of the light.
Yes, 40% reduction in broadside collisions and 10% increase in rear end collisions.
So you do the math, it's like 30% balance. Oh.
Yes, but we consider broadside collisions are typically more severe than rear end collisions.
And Mr. Dye, so we have 8 locations. Do we know which location is the highest incident? Or, highest violations ticket?
I believe it's Harbor and Trask, right? Harbor and Trask.
Which one?
Harbor and Trask.
Oh, okay, I feel better. Just kidding.
And half of those are Kim.
More than half. I have that whole area. I did say it was a crazy intersection. Mr. Mayor, may I? Thank you. I by no means want to take away a tool that our police department has to ensure traffic safety. As you know, over the years, I've been hounding for more traffic safety improvements, especially in my district, specifically around the Harbor Trask area. But I do question this program and the amount. This could be potentially 2 police officers added to the traffic unit. Does that make the traffic safety, improve versus the light? Because we could have 2 officers or more dedicated to the whole city rather than these 8 specific locations, of which they're all gathered in that same particular area. I don't know, but these are all things that I would say we should consider as options. It's a lot of money. And I just don't know that there isn't something else that we could be doing that would be a greater public safety improvement to our city over having these lights. I mean, we've had them for so long. Please go ahead, Chief.
Good evening. I think for us, even adding 2 more motors, I know in this budget cycle we added more traffic officers. I think what we need to remember is we use them for all of our events, so they're not just traffic enforcement. So they're spent a great deal of time for festivals that we have and things like that, that it's not just the day of, it's the planning, it's the traffic plans, it's everything else. If we were to even bring on 2 more officers, I would tell you that we need a lot more to police the intersections. And then what we have to look at is, we're talking about a 40% decrease in broadside collisions. The man hours that we would have to pay for our officers to investigate fatal traffic collisions or serious collisions when they're involved in broadside is going to be astronomical. And this program enables us to not have an officer present at that intersection and to police it with video evidence. Hopefully that answers. Thank you.
Is it just pictures or does it provide video as well?
Both.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Hold on, I've got Fat and then Tuha and then.
I still remember this discussion about, I think about 5 years ago, when Mayor Byron, at the time of Mr. Byron was our mayor, was that 5, 6? Yeah, must be 5, 6 years ago. And I did a lot of research back then. Just like Councilman Bradingham mentioned earlier, is it effective or is it not effective? It depends. Some scientists claim it is very effective and they cite it and say that they cite others are fact. But then there are other scientific research saying the totally opposite. I do not believe it saved 40%. I don't believe that at all. I'm a mathematician as well, so I know statistics. Statistics is only true when you base your analysis on certain assumption. So it's very subjective. It's not objective at all. So I don't believe it. But that's not the point. I believe that having it there is probably will be helpful, but how helpful it is, but how including it is. The benefit may not worth the burden that it's putting on our residents. And my troubling is 5 years or 6 years ago, when I vote no, a lot of residents, Vietnamese, Caucasian, Latino, come to me and ask, thank you, but how come it's still failing? I said, well, I couldn't convince my colleagues. Their objections is based on the fact that no city around Garden Grove have this kind of things. Santa Ana took it down many years ago. Westminster never have it. And other cities, you name it. Fountain Valley, Buena Park, Stanton, none of them having it. And are we saying that their accident is on, going up on the roof? Not only that, throughout the last many months, I have seen so many traffic accidents, not at where the light is, and maybe the light help. But then why aren't we putting these things, if it is so effective, why don't we put it on Garden Grove Boulevard and Century Boulevard near Home Depot? That is where there have been so many collisions, so many people die there. The other thing that worries me is on many other city projects, I always contest, the fact that we sold SARS to a company for a few years, 4 or 5 years. sole sourcing to one company is already long enough, let alone 26, 27 years. So I really have a big problem with extending this another 5 years. I always support police, you know that, but this one is something that I don't think I can.
I have 2 questions. In regard to 8 cameras that we install around the cities, and it's part of the question the follow-up last time was we know which camera is the most, or which intersection has the most incident, right, of violations, and we know which intersection have the least. I think it's about time to review which one is the least so we can remove it. And the follow-up question would be $369,000 annually. Is that based on the 8 cameras, or based on quantity, or based on overall services? So if we remove, if some of the intersection no longer high risk, that we have to install the camera there, then we can slowly take it down. And for 5 years is a long time. I would suggest that because over time, people driving habit might change, population might change. So we can review it again, whether we continue. But to me, I think 5 years is too long as well. So that's one thing. The most important thing is, I think it's about time to review 8 camera with whether it's necessary. Some intersection no longer declared as a high risk. We should take it down. And if that's the case, if that 396,000 will be lower if that's the case. That's all I have.
Yeah, even achieving a 5 or 6% reduction in traffic collisions is a huge, huge accomplishment. And like Councilman Bowie, I don't know if I necessarily agree with 40%. I do have a question, and I don't know if it could actually be answered or not, but there was a period in time when the courts did a moratorium and all the cameras had to be turned off for, I think it was about a year, 6 months to a year. That was early 2000s or so. Was there a 40% increase in traffic collisions during that period or not? I mean, do we know?
I can't say one way or another when that moratorium was. So Daivu mentioned when we did the study, and if that was prior to it, it would be invalid anyhow.
Okay. Yeah, again, I share Councilman sole source issue. I doubt that there's another city vendor, and I'm probably wrong, but there's not very many that have had a 27-year exclusive deal with the city without any going out to public bid or RFP process or anything like that. I doubt that there's that many. So I do have issues, 25, 27 years for one company to have a sole exclusive thing. And I don't know, are there other companies out there that provide these services? I don't know. 5 years, that's just too much for me. I'm happy with 2. I could see that. And then when it comes back in 2 years, we have that discussion if we want to even continue with it or not. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Go ahead. When I saw this item on the agenda, I did reach out to council members in surrounding cities, Buena Park, Tustin, and Costa Mesa. And one of the suggestions that the mayor of Buena Park actually suggested was Buena Park and Irvine had implemented automated license plate readers. And I have concerns about that for a whole host of other reasons as it pertains to Homeland Security, but we won't go there. So I think I agree with the other 3 council members that have said that, the 5-year term is a little too long. Can we do a shorter term and come back and revisit it? At that point, perhaps could we have alternatives? Like what would it look like if we dismantled the program? What would it take to ensure traffic safety in these intersections and around the city? Because it might be, probably will be, way more costly than what this program has. So again, like I said, I don't want to remove a tool from the PD's toolbox. But I want to have more information available in the future to be able to make a better call, because to me, other cities, like I said, or I think Councilmember Brenham said, there's only 2 cities in Orange County that have the red light cameras, so that's concerning to me. But again, to the chief's point, I'm not thinking about the fact that having those lights there means that we don't have to have traffic officers posted at those intersections monitoring that, and that they have a whole host of other duties that they take. I didn't take that into consideration when thinking this through, but I was taking into consideration residents whom, like myself, have been targeted by the lights for minor mishaps, and then having to deal with higher rates on their insurance, and or paying for classes or taking the time, and just financially it's not possible or helpful to them, and the next thing you know, they're at risk of homelessness, and then we go down a path of a whole host of other issues. So I was taking that into consideration when looking over this item. With that being said, I would motion to approve this item for a 2-year agreement, in hopes, and I request that staff come back in those 2 years with alternatives to this program in the event that the council at that time chooses to no longer move forward with this program, because again, looking at what the options are isn't going to be something you can provide me tomorrow. It's going to take time, and I don't want to make a rash decision and then have an increase of, I don't know, 80% collisions. I have no idea. So 2-year, I would motion to approve a 2-year agreement with staff coming back with alternatives in the future for us to review, to have more data available to really look at these trends and see if these lights are, worth keeping, and to add to Councilmember Tuhadwin's comment about reviewing the lights that currently are in the program and seeing if we could do away with 1 or 2 of them to reduce the cost.
Yeah. I second to it.
I would like to make an alternate motion to table it. I don't think we have enough information to decide tonight. Plus, we also do not have the full city council. I think something that is this important at this nature, we want to do it diligently. There's a lot of questions in my mind about it, and I do not want to rush to us to vote tonight. The study that Mr. Wu mentioned earlier, it seemed to be very subjective to me. I don't see his formula, and I do not feel confident that he done it right. When at the very least, I do not know whether he made a comparison during the time when we have a 12-month stop, of the camera that Councilmember George mentioned earlier. We should have come back and study and do a comparative study to see whether that effect, shutting off the camera for 1 year have any effect to traffic collision. We don't know that. Secondly, even 2 years, this company certainly benefit too much. I have never, in my life working for the state, I never seen any company that doing business for public agency for more than 2 years in a row. Adding 2 years meaning we are adding to their contract a total of 24, 25 years. That's impossible. And I don't even know if someone take us to court whether they will have the route or not. But even if legally we could do it, to the public perception, this is just wrong. We are awarding one company 20, not just a small contract, $1 million contract, years in and years out for 24 years. Why can't we going out for bid? Is there any company out there that can do something similar? And if I remember 6 years ago, one of the reasons that we gave them 5 years contract at that time is because they said that if we do not give it to them, they will take the equipment back, and it would cost us a lot more to install other company equipment. That's really I feel like they are blackmailing us into, we have to keep them in and years out. 5 years from now, if we continue to want to have, continue to use a camera and we want to bring another company, it will cost us a lot more to replace the company. If that is the case, then why not do it now? So having said that, I would like to make an alternate motion to table it so that staff can have the time to get back to us, more answer to the questions that we have so that we can decide.
Councilman Bowie, the contract ends August 13th and we don't have a council meeting, so can we add clarification on how we would go about that?
We could just have a month of no camera. It's not the end of the world. It's not that we turn off for 1 month and then, we cannot bring them back.
Well, that was going to be my question, depending on if I was going to second it or not. Is there any rush that we have to do this tonight? I guess the answer is the contract ends in August. Is that
Contract ends before the next council meeting.
okay? So if the contract, do we have to turn it off without the contract, basically? Then, or is there a way to approve it for a month?
Yeah, you could
To
approve
extend
it
it for a month while we consider all the factors?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
I mean, that would be preferable.
Yeah,
We need to have the
I don't want to
contract in
shut it
place.
down because we might vote to keep going. I mean, we don't know. Under his, so I'll make a third alternate motion.
Well, then let
table it
approve it
and
for a
allow-
few months.
Or unless Councilman Bowie wants to change.
Yeah, I would change my motion to approve this contract for 4 months so that we can have the time to do more diligence.
And then-
I think 4 months would be enough.
And then bring it back with
I'll bring it back, yeah.
I'll second that.
Do we need to clarify what other information it is that we expect staff to come back with in addition to what's already contained in the report?
Well, I would like to find out, is it possible for us to go out for bid is one? Because this continue using this company years in and years out really bother me. So even if we decide to continue with the camera program, I would like to go out and see if there's other company that can offer the services than Redflex. And I would like also to ask traffic engineering to give us a more in-depth analysis of, during the time that we shut down the camera for about a year that Councilmember Bridingham mentioned earlier, do we see a sharp increase in traffic collision, or we have moderate increase, or what? That I think is very important. That would be more objective. And lastly, I also like us to revisit, should we do it at this same location or should we move it to a different location? Because in the last many months, I have seen report of so many fatal collisions along Garden Grove Boulevard, near Home Depot, along Brookhurst, near Lamson, far away from the location where there is a traffic light. Maybe it's time for us to move it so that, to different places in the city, so that, people are paying more attention and drive more cautiously around town, not just where they know there is a camera.
Okay, so where do we stand?
We have a motion for
You have an
4 months.
alternate motion on the floor
For 4 months.
To approve the contract, but for 4
for
months.
4 months,
only.
and then we'll come back with answers to the additional
Is
questions.
there a second to that? Did you second that? Any other commentary? Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Bridingham,
On which motion?
you're the alternate.
The alternate,
substitute.
yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, that takes us on to 4B.
Item 4B is approval to allocate additional funding for graffiti abatement and approval of Amendment Number 1 to the agreement with Graffiti Protective Coatings, Inc. And Public Works Director Bill Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeroy. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, City Council is being asked to increase our existing contract with Graffiti Protective Coatings for graffiti removal services on public property. On November 24th of 2020, the city awarded a contract with GPC for graffiti removal, work to be done 6 days a week and address about 1,000 locations citywide per month. All work is to be completed at an annual cost of just over $240,000 per year. During the budget cycle for the 21 to 23 fiscal years, staff requested the contract be increased to add an additional graffiti vehicle 3 days a week. This work would be done at the cost of $137,187 per year. The cost to provide this additional service for the remainder of this year is $51,500. As a part of this, and that is a part of the request being made tonight. The other part is to fund the additional truck for 3 days a week for the remaining 4 years of the contract. And that amounts to almost $549,000 per year. I mean, in total for the additional 4 years. This concludes staff's report. I'm available should you have any questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. So one of the biggest things I've heard constituents complain about is the color matching. It's very difficult to find the colors. Wondering if there's a way to expand those options so that we can have proper color matching. And also, I know that I complain about graffiti all the time, and most of the time it ends up being private property, which we don't have any control over. So one of the questions I had was that I'm sure it's going to cost more, but can we look into the possibility of expanding our program to include private properties where we enter into agreements with them so that high targeted areas, I can rattle off a lot, but one primarily on Chapman and Haster's, the Peruvian restaurant there. They paint it, and then the next day there's 10 times more graffiti. There's apartments in that area, same thing. They paint it, and then they just leave it alone for 6 months because every time they paint it, there's graffiti within hours. So if we could enter into agreements with them, they pay for the service, but we have our vendor come out and pay for the painting of the graffiti. I would be really curious to see what that would look like and what that would cost us to do, if it's even possible, because I don't know about entering into agreements with private properties. We did have a gentleman at the last meeting complaining about the Jack in the Box, and this brand new 7 Leaves that just got built on Chapman and Harbor was totally graffitied up, and they haven't even opened yet. And maybe it's transients jumping over into the fencing, it wasn't locked properly, whatever, I don't know. But we're seeing this happen all the time, and I think we need to be more proactive. Clearly, private property owners either don't have the means to, are frustrated and don't care anymore, whatever the case may be, but I just want to look into other options.
Okay. In terms of the robust or additional color matching, we could certainly look into what it would cost to provide that in our and at our next budget session have those figures available. I don't know if they could offer some sort of an intermediate service, maybe instead of carrying just 4 or 5 colors, carry 7 or 8 or something like that. I don't know what their capabilities are, but we can certainly have the vendor look into that and provide some different costs. In terms of providing graffiti coverage on private property, are you interested in having the city pay for that?
No, I would like for us to talk to those property owners that we know are like high targeted graffiti areas to see if they would be interested in entering an agreement where they would pay for our vendor to paint for them, or however that would work out. I don't know if there's examples of this with other cities, but I'm seeing that other cities are providing a service. I don't know if they pay for it or if they have agreements with these private property owners. So I'm curious to know what options we have in that regard.
Did you say other cities are doing this on private property? Like,
There-
my first gut reaction is, it's a slippery slope, and also we become subject to scrutiny.
We do
of
have,
quality of our paint
we
jobs.
do have regulations. State law does allow us to go on private property, provided we get property owner consent. Now, the issue of, I think it's, our code provides that we can actually request property owner consent, and then our contractor can go on the private property. But the city would then be paying for treating that wall. We also have a separate provision where we can call it a public nuisance and then send a notice and require the property owner to paint over the graffiti at their expense. That's a longer process. It's more of a enforcement, nuisance abatement type process. Question is whether we want to, start enforcing those provisions as a private nuisance.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't think we want to go down that slippery slope of painting private property, that type of thing. However, what I have seen other cities do is what Omar had alluded to, implement a fine. If you don't remove the graffiti on the private property within 10 days of being notified from the city, get a $500 fine. It's a lot cheaper to just paint it than to pay the fine, so they generally comply. I've seen some cities do that application. But the days of not color matching, I mean, honestly, I think most cities do it now. Honestly, the paint, I know on our end of town, one of the real estate agents went in and talked to a bunch of folks and got a color, and he went over to Home Depot and he registered that color, and then he went over to Ace Hardware and he registered that color. And so anybody in the community can go get that color of paint and it matches the walls. So you're not gonna have a bunch of different colors. Even Watts, which was really graffitied 20 years ago, bad, color matches their walls and their stuff, so I really think we're really behind the eight ball and not doing it. And that really limits the amount of paint that a vendor has to have. Instead of having 7, 8 colors, they can have the one that matches.
And that would be an infinite number, wouldn't it?
Well, that's where the council would have to decide on the color. And that's the one we go with on all of our block walls, But with that being said, I do agree. I think most cities have gone down that path already, and I've seen results already in some areas. Even over in the areas that we've color matched in the west side of town, and we had to do it on our own.
Just to clarify, I think what you're describing is the opposite of color matching. It would be like standardizing a specific color.
It's a specific color that everybody uses.
As opposed to an infinite number of colors.
Yeah,
Somehow
I'm sorry.
standardizing that it's only going to be.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The color is already on file at those stores at Ace and Home Depot, and you could just say, I want that color, and they know how, they have the recipe and they can make it, and it matches when you paint the wall. So you don't have a bunch of different colors. And it also saves the amount of paint you need to use. Because now instead of having to paint this whole big area, you just have to paint over the graffiti itself. So in a lot of ways, it's actually cheaper than doing it the way we're doing it now. But I agree. We need this. We need the money. I'm all for it. We need more funding for graffiti abatement. But every time we bring up color matching, every time we bring up these things like what Councilman Nguyen has brought up, the answer we get is, oh, we'll bring it back at the next budget meeting and we'll discuss it. And then that never seems to happen. So I think the motion on this item needs to be firm. Let's start making some of this stuff happen. It's getting old, getting excuses saying, we're going to talk about it next year, or we'll talk about it at the next budget cycle, or we'll talk about it, how many years can you say that and never anything ever happens? So it's my 2 cents.
Bill, how many colors do we stock standard now?
4.
4 different colors.
Plus concrete, matching concrete.
Which feels like that should be plenty, right? I mean,
Well, you're not going to be able to completely match it. But what we could do is certainly ask that question. I mean, this contractor does work in a lot of different cities around here, and we could look further into their program. I mean, we came back to ask for additional funding to do this. We could work with the contractor to see about upping our color matching game, so to speak, and present to you yet another request for additional funding to take care of that.
So I personally just like that this is coming back. I like that we're actually investing a little more money into graffiti removal because it is a problem and it's an eyesore. And, you know, like they say, like broken window theory or whatever, it's like same with graffiti. If you let things fester, then it gets out of control really fast. So the more proactive we are about addressing graffiti, and then, you know, we deal with the standardizations and, you know, try and perfect those aspects as much as we can. But I just like that we're doing something more rather than less about this, so I appreciate that this item is in front of us.
And realistically, you know, it was only since we reduced staff, or actually offered a retirement package in 2018, and that's really when this program kind of went from staff working directly for me to this contractor. The contractor previously had just worked on weekends and holidays and things like that. So that hasn't been a lot of time. And the color matching thing, in my opinion, has been something that has been raised within the last year, maybe at the most 2 years. So we have taken some steps on that and trying to get, you know, up to 4 colors. I know that our staff, when we did it in-house, we painted over with whatever we got, sometimes with donation paint, so it turned out a very ugly green almost every time. And so it has gotten better, but we could certainly look at even making it more. So, and show you what the cost would look like to do that.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say, to clarify, I'm really interested in color matching and not just having the standardized colors. I know that I brought this up, I believe it was my first or second year in office, because my dad owns a home in my district and has a fence that's public facing, and he had an issue where he was getting graffitied on that wooden fence, and the city had told him he had to buy a specific color, and then there was this whole dramatic, and he was asking me questions, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I did bring it up during council. And so I think for areas in which that are public facing, that are technically ours to cover or not, or all of those different components that come into it, just having a limited stock of colors isn't sufficient to me. I know that this vendor contracts with the city of Santa Ana, and they have a robust color matching program, so I'd be curious to know what that would be as an additional cost for our city, since we are smaller. But it's something that I'd be willing to invest in, because this is an issue that's only been getting worse. And I think during the pandemic, when a lot of people had nothing to do, and all of a sudden there was 10 times more graffiti than I've ever seen in my years of office. So I'm more interested in color matching than I am in the standardizing of like 1 color or 4 colors.
All right. Do we have a motion on the table?
Move to approve that item, and if we could get that information back at a future council meeting, that would be most appreciated.
I second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Brightigam.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Takes us on to matters. Anyone? Mayor Pro Tem Kim.
I have quite a few, as we won't have a meeting for like a month, but I will go as quick as I possibly can. First item, I've had constituent concerns regarding the 99-cent store off of Harbor and Garden Grove Boulevard. I met with a constituent the other day that mentioned that the 99-cent store throws away its food waste into the bins behind, Republic Service bins behind, which is, there's a little alleyway if you're unfamiliar with that area. And after 9 p.m. when they close, there's an influx of transient or individuals that come and break into the trash can and leave a mess. And they've been witnessed, doing drugs and taking dumps on the alleyway and et cetera. And so it's become a real problem. We've had instances of individuals jumping over the private property in the backyard to hop over the fence to get to another alley leading to apartments. Apparently climbing up, I believe it's a telephone pole. So I really would like for staff to look into this matter and see if we can find some resolution. The 99-cent store has been contacted by the resident requesting a steel metal lid container, but it seems like 99-cent store is unwilling to do so. They've also called Republic Services and they're willing to do so, but that they need to be contacted by 99-cent store in order to do that. The resident has also volunteered to help build an enclosure to see if that helps mitigate the issue. So it just seems like the 99-cent store is just unwilling to make any strides on this issue. So I would like for staff to look into that, as well as maybe connecting them with nonprofits that take food or expired food donations. I know when I was younger, I used to work at Starbucks, and every night when we closed and we had leftover pastries, there'd be a pickup from a nonprofit for that food. So if we can connect them with that resource, so that food isn't going to waste and not going into a dirty trash bin where folks then need to jump in there to try and get something to eat, that would be great. The second item I have is I would like to request a meeting with Garden Grove staff as well as Santa Ana staff to get some more information regarding their robust neighborhood association program. I know that I mentioned this during the budget session as well as during my council priorities meeting, that I'd like to see the city of Garden Grove have a more robust program where we ideally have one neighborhood association per district. I believe the city of Santa Ana has over 22, so I'd be really curious to see how that city runs that program and what the cost is for it and how they initiated it. The other item I have, I wish that officer would have stayed. I have a crosswalk by Clinton Elementary School along Orangewood Academy where there's a light, and that the yellow light is too short. I heard a couple complaints. I went to test it out this morning and I almost got hit by a car walking my dog. So I'd like to have that light reviewed for the yellow light to be increased as far as the timing. The other one is the freeway exits seem to be filled with more trash and more transient individuals. I have contacted the SRT team to address this issue, and I know that they struggle to get Caltrans out there to clean those areas. They've handled a couple of the others that I made complaints about, but most recently I noticed that the harbor, I believe it's the southbound exit, the one where the statue place used to be, is filled with a bunch of trash. So if we could get Caltrans and have conversations with them about being more diligent about cleaning up the areas they're responsible for. The other one is Buena Clinton Apartments. There's been an issue with overflowing trash, and the property owner refuses to purchase additional trash receptacles for both buildings that he or she owns. So I'd like for us to be more proactive in meeting with that owner, and whether that's having him fined for not providing, safe and healthy standards for his residents, and we need to do that because I keep hearing the same complaints. And lastly, just kudos to to Lisa's team, Lisa Kim, our assistant city manager's team, for our Foods of Garden Grove program that's been initiated. That foodie map is awesome, although it's definitely hurting my bank and my belly. I literally ran today to Birria El Bandido after seeing an Instagram post for that shop, and there's plenty of restaurants being highlighted that don't come up on your Yelp when you're searching, so it's been really great to see some of these hole-in-the-walls or really nice, cute cafes that I've never even heard of, so I'm really proud of this project and happy to see it, and hope that more residents take a look and expand and make sure that this doesn't fizzle out. And with that, that's all of my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Bowie.
Over the last month or so, I had an earful from Vietnamese residents in our city and in city nearby about a program in summer concert in Garden Grove Park. I think everyone really like the idea, and they really appreciate the Garden Grove Foundation for sponsoring and organizing those events. But one thing that they would like me and express me to clarify to the public that the August concert does not represent the Vietnamese music at all. It's a new wave music performed by one Vietnamese band, and they want to make sure that the public understand that that is not a Vietnamese music. It's a music performed by a Vietnamese band. It's a new wave music type. New wave is something that some younger generation of the Vietnamese enjoy a couple decades ago. I don't think it is any, being, widely enjoyed in the Vietnamese community. They move on to various different type of music. But the one that the Vietnamese community enjoy the most is popular music, both Western popular music as well as Vietnamese popular music. And so this August, if you come out to enjoy the concert in the park, please keep in mind that that is not representative of the Vietnamese music or the music that most Vietnamese enjoy. Thank you.
Councilmember Tuha.
Yes, I want to echo through Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen. I want to say thank you to Lisa and her team. Foodie in Garden Grove is awesome. I love the map, and I love to see more restaurants. And then I see a lot of restaurants in District 3 as well. But thank you so much, and I think this is a great way to promote our Garden Grove. Absolutely. Well, second thing, I just want to thank you to Mr. Daivu for spending some time with me walking the street on Gilbert. And many of you know Gilbert Street. We have traffic, we have speed, and we do have high risk of pedestrian accident. So thank you, Mr. Daivu, for spending some time with me, study. We walk the street and see what we can improve on that street. And second thing, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Bredigan.
Yeah, echoing the foodie thing, awesome. I actually got motivated looking at a post that Councilman Nguyen had put up. What was it, a taco or something you were dipping in? That looked really good. I'm gonna have to go over there and try one of those. So, keep that rolling. Happy birthday, Deidre Nguyen. I just wanted to say, I know I know you're coming up. We won't be here for your birthday, right? So we're gonna miss it. But happy upcoming birthday. National Night Out, Garden Grove National Night Out, August 3rd. 5 to 8 p.m. right here on Acacia. Garden Grove PD will be there. All kinds of vendors, all kinds of stuff to see and do, demonstrations. Come on out. It's a good time and get to know your local police officers. And then lastly, I do need, I'll talk offline on that. That's all.
Happy birthday, Tuha.
Thank you. Okay, General Counsel, anything to report out?
We did have 2 closed session items, but there is no reportable action.
Thank you. Lisa and/or Maria, anything from City Manager's office perspective?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I don't have any items, but thank you to the Council for recognizing Food of Garden Grove. It was a team effort with certainly our IT department, Office of Community Relations, and just super excited about celebrating the Foods of Garden Grove. Thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we actually have several different people who passed that we're going to close tonight's meeting on, so I've got some words to share. So it's with great sadness and loss that tonight's meeting will be adjourned in memory of former City of Westminster Mayor and Councilmember Margie Rice, Garden Grove resident Dr. Gregory Moore, and Garden Grove Police Dispatcher Archie Guzman. Archie Guzman, a 15-year employee, was an important member of the Garden Grove Police Department as our dispatch supervisor, who died suddenly and unexpectedly. No words can express the loss for Garden Grove Police Department, who knew him for his kindness and humor, and as a true brother in arms who could always be counted on. I would like to offer heartfelt condolences to Archie's wife, Rosa, and children, Ashley and Ethan, and to Archie's police family. He will be truly missed. I would also like to offer my sincere condolences to Katie Kisk Moore and her family on the loss of her husband, Dr. Gregory Moore, who recently passed away from cancer. Dr. Moore grew up in Garden Grove, and his wife, Katie, served on the City of Garden Grove as a traffic commissioner. Gregory and Katie together dedicated time and effort to make Garden Grove better and safer, and Gregory was taken far too soon. Dr. Moore leaves behind his wife Katie and their 3 adult children. And I would also like to respectfully offer sincere condolences to the family of former Westminster Mayor Margie Rice, who leaves behind an impressive legacy of service to her city. She was a stalwart and tough-minded leader who served as both a council member and a mayor for a combined 2 decades, was a board member of the Midway City Sanitation District, and also served on the Westminster School Board of Trustees for 17 years. Margie leaves behind her 4 children, 19 grandchildren, 23 great-grandchildren, and 12 great-great-grandchildren. And she will not be forgotten soon. Thank you, and with that, we will stand adjourned.